Hi folks, Steve here, and let's talk Dead Calm, the Phillip Noyce film from 1989. I've just got you the official classification certificate because just to clarify some confusion, especially when you're looking at the posters, the film was classified M in Australia and it was classified R in America. Now, that's not because Americans couldn't take, crazy Billy Zane or anything like that, and they had to restrict people. It's because their rating system is completely different to ours. Because I guess I don't know, because they're American and they want to do everything differently. Yeah, that's probably why. Anyway, an R-rated film in America means if you're under 17, you have to see the film with a guardian or parent. But if you're over 17, you're more than welcome to see any R-rated film. In Australia, that's very different because an R-rated film means you cannot see the film with or without a guardian until you're 18 and above. Anyway, it was rated M, and it's not recommended for children under 15 and may include moderate levels of violence, language, or themes. Well, it does include moderate levels of violence, language, and themes. But just let me take this moment to say it's not like it's not this gory kind of like films like Saw. There's kind of gratuitous exploitation films. It's not one of those films. Okay, so if you don't like those films, don't worry. I'm not subjecting you to one of those films with Dead Calm. Dead Calm is a suspense of Nicole Kidman having to deal with crazy Billy Zane. Now, this is the poster, the official Australian poster, I should add, which has a very kind of, there's Nicole kind of staring at us with a kind of very blank expression. She doesn't seem that impressed, does she, with sort of embracing Billy Zane. Anyway, the tagline, a couple alone at sea, when a stranger called for help, they made a fatal mistake. They answered. If the Australian cinema tells us anything, ladies and gentlemen, it's not to trust strangers. Just basically do your own thing. Don't trust strangers. Keep to yourself, because that's really what's going on with this film. They shouldn't have welcomed a crazy Billy who wanted to jump on board their boat, claiming that everyone on his boat had died and he had no food and he's seeking refuge, and could they help him out? Anyway, let me know what you think of the poster. The poster, of course, is promoting Nicole and promoting the sea, and it really is a film about the sea. But as you think about the film, and I do want to talk about this, it's a film about nature and the Australian environment, and the fact that what you have in a lot of these international Australian films are them taking particular myths or stereotypes or ideas about Australia for international audiences and kind of exploiting them by actually creating these narratives around these destinations. And I think that's worth thinking about in regard to how this poster is being set up for an audience. Now, I just want to say a couple of things about Nicole Kidman. I don't really have the scope to say as much as I'd like to say about Nicole Kidman, but I mean, this isn't really an apology, but I must say that I didn't respect Nicole enough. I don't think in her early years, in her salad days, but she's just continued to go from strength to strength. And what's really interesting about her is how devoted she has remained to the Australian cinema. That although she goes off to America and makes big Hollywood productions there, she's always coming back and always working in Australia and kind of using her stardom as a way to get a number of films greenlit and into production that probably normally wouldn't. Of course, last year she was in Lion, which I still don't get her performance. She's only in about 4 or 5 scenes, and I got to be frank, she's not that good. I mean, she's all right. It's a performance about the hair. It's really about the hair. I think she's got this kind of 80s thing going on, as in 1980s. She doesn't look 80, but anyway, she got nominated for an Academy for that. Not really sure why. Maybe they just want to give Nicole an Academy Award, and they thought, why not? But they didn't give her it for that anyway. Other important Australian international films is like The Railway Man. Very important film as far as the pre-production all happening in Australia and Screen Australia funding the film, even though the film isn't actually about Australia. But, she was in Baz Luhrmann's Australia. She was in Happy Feet, which is great. And, she's just continued to keep coming back and making really interesting films like Moulin Rouge, another Baz Luhrmann film. Of course, after Dead Calm, things really, really changed quite dramatically for her in that it launched, because the success of this film in America really launched her international career. And have a think about that, the breaking out films, and this film being somewhat of a breaking out film for Nicole Kidman, also a breaking out film for Phillip Noyce, and Sam Neill, the return of Sam Neill yet again. I mean, Sam Neill, for a Kiwi, he's he's pretty good in the way he's latched onto the Australian cinema, and I guess if you want to sort of cast a suppressed, stoic kind of middle-aged husband, Sam Neill's your guy. You got him in the piano. He's repressed. He's stoic. Evil Angels, repressed, stoic. I mean, the list just goes on and on with Sam Neill. And here he is yet again. Now, there was some talk at the time of the film because there was quite an age difference between them. And Nicole Kidman, she's actually had her 20th birthday during the shoot of the film. So she was not close to Sam Neill in age. I think Sam Neill was, he's in his 40s, I think, when they shot this. Anyway, quite a difference. And the plot, so basically, they lose a child, Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman. And they're in trauma, great trauma, as you would when you're losing a child. So, they do what you often do in the movies when you lose a child, you go on a holiday. And which you probably shouldn't. I mean, if they've seen other films, like say Don't Look Now, they go on holiday and things don't end well for them after losing a child. So maybe if you lose a child in a movie, you shouldn't go on holiday. You should just stay at home, just kind of bunker down. Anyway, they go on holiday. So they go away. So they've lost a child, and Nicole Kidman, her character is meant to be very, very late 20s. So she's about 28, 29, kind of, nudging 30. And Phillip Noyce got a coach to come in and to teach Nicole Kidman how to play an older person. And you could make this claim that this is kind of her, rite of passage film, where she learnt to play a mature woman, where earlier she'd been playing kind of teenagers and kids, obviously because she was a teenager and a kid. And speaking of a teenager and kids films, BMX Bandits, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic, worth watching. It still holds up pretty well. I watched it recently again, and I like it a lot. But it's something to think about with Nicole, and the problems with. If there's a problem with their relationship and a distance, you could say, well, that's part of the film, that's actually part of their relationship, that they kind of feel distant to each other because they've lost a child. Or you could actually blame Phillip Noyce. Anyway, enough of that. So the movie is based on the novel called Dead Calm. It's a 1963 novel. So the film has been updated. The novel by Charles Williams. If you don't know Charles Williams, he's had a few adaptations of his work. It's an so Dead Calm is an American book, which I think is very interesting because of the way that Phillip Noyce basically relocated the book in Australia and made it into an Australian film. Now, there is a history with the Williams material because Orson Welles had actually made his own adaptation of Dead Calm. He filmed it under the name of The Deep and also Dead Reckoning. Right? He wrote his own script. And then one of the cast members died at the very end of the shoot, but they already had actually shot the film. Well, they had enough of the film to shoot. Anyway, Wells just lost interest in the material during the shoot. He abandoned the film. He shelved it, and the film was never released. In this quest of just releasing all of these unreleased Orson Welles stuff, there is kind of a push to see Orson Welles as The Deep. Phillip Noyce, director of Dead Calm, has seen The Deep, he claims. There is Orson Welles' estate who say they do have they have a copy of The Deep, but it hasn't been released. Anyway, the reason why I'm banging on about Orson Welles is I think it's an interesting thing in that you've got something that's a very American story and it's being adapted by Orson Welles in a very American way. And then Phillip Noyce comes along. And the reason why, so Orson Welles' estate still had copyright of the Williams material, the Williams book. And they said to Phillip Noyce, we will give you the rights for the book. We will sign over the rights to you on the proviso that you don't make a Hollywood film. Because the Welles family felt very jaded and, pissed with Hollywood because they felt that, they didn't give Orson the respect and the dignity and the opportunities that he deserved, which is kind of crazy, in that Orson Welles, for me, is, one of the greatest filmmakers ever. But anyway, they felt jaded. So Phillip Noyce, he's like, no problem. I won't make it as a Hollywood film. I'll take it to Australia, which apparently the Welles family were very happy about. All right. So, and that's why the film is set in Australia, because Phillip Noyce had been really trying to push, his Hollywood career, so to speak. It's interesting in the changes that they make to the film. And when you're watching the film, if the film feels very kind of American in its narrative structure and characters and plot and things like that, a lot of that will have to do with the book. There are clear changes to the book. Like in the book, it's populated by a lot more characters, but there's also the structure of the book remains very much so. And what I really like about Dead Calm is it's kind of like this 3-piece kind of theatre. It's just like Sam Neill, devoted stoic husband, Nicole Kidman. Well, she's just Nicole Kidman, just great being Nicole Kidman, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, and crazy Billy Zane, who for the purpose of this lecture will be referred to only as Crazy Billy Zane. Now, like I said, is this a Hollywood movie? Like it's like, how do you make an Australian film that sells to an international audience? Like, what do you do? And there are so many different ways of making a Hollywood movie for an an Australian movie for an international audience. You can cast big American stars. You can kind of make a film like, say, a Mad Max film, which is just this crazy kind of utopian, dystopian Australia where it all seems very generic. There are many, many different ways of thinking about how you can do that. Or you make an Australian movie, and it has Crazy Billy Zane. It has Crazy Billy Zane Um, and he's an American, but that's irrelevant. The film is it feels kind of Hollywood, and I'll be very interested to know what you make of this because you've got these things which are so associated with Hollywood. The thing about Australian cinema, and the thing that people find quite uh, frustrating, perhaps, or they're a bit ambivalent about, is the ambiguity of the films. That you don't have these endings which are a clear resolution. You don't have endings which are actually happy, right? The thing about Australian films is shit goes down, things go bad, and roll the credits the end. It's not like an American movie where it all starts happy, some bad stuff goes down, but then good conquers evil and everybody ends drinking champagne and we're all happy, just waiting for the sequel. It's not like that. Really, often in Australian films. I mean, of course, there are examples, but by and large, and if you actually think about, certain films we've been discussing in the course, we're not talking the most happy endings around, right? But in this film, you've got clear good characters, you've got clear bad characters. It's just a classic Hollywood melodramatic structure. Good on one side, bad on the other, and virtuous in the middle. But what's interesting about this film is that virtuous, as in Nicole Kidman being the virtuous, it's not like she's this object that's being fought over between the two men. She actually fights her own battles, which is really kind of liberating to watch that on the screen and really interesting to watch that on the screen. And Nicole Kidman has continued to do that across her career. So you've got good and bad characters, you've got suspenseful ending, and you've got the complete resolution. But the film is still very Australian. I'm not saying that you're going to watch this and going, this is not Australian. Right? It's still very much Australian. So think about Avram's quote, which we love this quote. An Australian film is the notion of resonance of a particular text with an Australian audience. What resonates for you with this film? Think about that. Now, I'll tell you something that resonates. Tourist destinations. Whitsunday Passage off the Queensland coast where it was shot. Also Great Barrier Reef. Great Barrier Reef, of course, could be one of the most famous aspects of the Australian landscape, even though I suppose it's technically not part of the landscape, is it? Anyway, Mark Ryan, he's talking about the outback, basically the rural, the not urban. And he says that the Australian outback is a dangerous, malevolent, and threatening force, and you kind of get that in a way in Dead Calm. The thing about Dead Calm is the sea is calm, hence the title Dead Calm, right? The threatening force is Crazy Billy Zane, and it's a bit like say, the dingo ate my the dingo ate my baby. The dingo took my baby, which of course was rephrased by all those American shows ripping it off, where the line became the dingo ate my baby incorrectly. But it's like in Evil Angels, you've got a dingo and it steals a baby, and the dingo is like the evil force, yeah. But the dingo is part of the landscape. It's like the dingo is a physical moving feature of the landscape. It's not like the dingo is in opposition to nature. And what you've got with Billy Zane, it's almost like he also is this kind of crazy character from that same Australian landscape. And that's, often what you get. And I think that's really interesting. So think about this film in comparison to other tourist destination films, right? So you've got, this film, Great Barrier Reef, things go bad, very, very bad. Picnic at Hanging Rock, nice afternoon, lunch, no, walk behind a rock, never to be seen again. Evil Angels, like I just mentioned. You go up to Uluru, fantastic. What happens? Dingo takes your baby. Yeah. If Australian cinema teaches anything, it's to like international audiences, it's don't come to Australia because it's not going to go well. Wolf Creek, go backpacking. What happens there? Exactly. Exactly, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Pam Cook, who, yeah, we like Pam Cook a lot. Pam Cook, very good writer, very good thinker, and huge fan on both Nicole Kidman and Baz Luhrmann. She said this. Kidman's body language. This is. She was talking about this in regard to Dead Calm. Kidman's body language, movements, and facial expressions are economically geared to rendering Ray's gradual understanding of how dangerous Hughie is. She makes no unnecessary gestures, and throughout the film, her relationship to objects is utilitarian, limited to their narrative function. That's the thing about Nicole Kidman that I didn't get for so long. I thought she couldn't act. That was my problem. I just thought she was sort of this kind of, not much of a presence really. And then I realised what she's actually doing. Unlike so many actors who just overact and, over gesture and all of that, Nicole has always been very, very still as a performer. And when you think of this sort of current breed, Kirsten Stewart's and people like that who are very kind of withdrawn and also very still in their acting, it's almost like they're coming from the Nicole Kidman school. It's just Nicole Kidman was doing it at a time when it wasn't cool, but now it is cool, and Nicole Kidman is really, really cool. So I think that's really interesting what's going on with this film, in that she is under attack by crazy Billy Zane, but she's able to show the fear without over giving this sort of histrionic performance. Everything is economically controlled, which is really interesting. Okay, this is another Australian film about characters against nature, like I was talking about. Think of the films I was mentioning, like Picnic at Hanging Rock. Very pale-looking schoolgirls go to Hanging Rock, and it's they seem in opposition to the landscape. They seem, well, in that film, completely virtuous in their white. And now I think about it, Nicole Kidman wears a lot of white in this film. I know some of you like to draw those sorts of comparisons, so let me put it down to you that, or I'll say to you, Nicole Kidman wearing white and Picnic at Hanging Rock. Is there a comparison or not? Probably not. I'm babbling now. Anyway, Nicole Kidman and the environment that she's in. She's on a boat. It's all sunny. It's all beautiful. But she doesn't actually seem like she's really, this isn't going to work. She's red-headed and she's pale, right? So she's gonna burn. She's gonna burn on that boat. She needs to wear a hat and sunglasses, and she needs to put on a lot of sunscreen, or she will burn. As a burner myself, I know that. Anyway, think about like Hanging Rock, a film like I mentioned before, Evil Angels, where you've got Meryl Streep playing Lindy Chambers, but Meryl very pale in that. In what she's doing with herself in that film. So again, this is Nicole Kidman kind of against nature. She doesn't seem suited to the sunny boating climate, and I think there's something about that and these characters being against nature. And then what's interesting in this film is when you see Billy Zane, right, the topless Billy Zane, crazy Billy Zane, he's brown. He just looks like he was born to be lying outside, just getting a sun shower and, I don't know, having a beer and working on his abs. The film did pretty well. It made about 10 million at the American box office, and about 5 million more. I'll have to check my figures on that, but I'm pretty sure it did well. Crazy Billy Zane won a Chicago Film Critics Association Awards for Most Promising Actor. And this film, Breaking Out Films, really launched Billy Zane. Phillip Noyce went to Hollywood, never to look back. Well, he did look back 13 years later. He came to make Rabbit Proof Fence. And Nicole Kidman, I don't know why she wasn't nominated for an AFI. Come on, what else has been nominated? Great performance. Anyway, it won the technical awards, so it's a very technical film, I think, is what this would tell us. Now, the original ending. So the original ending is Crazy Billy Zane, right? He's kind of knocked out. Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman conquer evil, and they put him in a raft and they push him out to the sea. Roll the credits. Fade to black. Now, they did a test screening in America. Now, a test screening, I'll talk about test screenings more now. Well, in a second I will. Which is where, they basically get people off the street and play them the film. They ask them to give their opinions. And those opinions can actually have a huge influence on the film that you end up seeing. Anyway, they did a test screening. I'll talk about more of the test screening. They did a test screening in America. The Americans didn't like the ending. So they went back to Phillip Noyce and they said, could you do another ending for us? Because we don't like, we really don't like that. We want Huey, Crazy Billy Zane, to come back for the final thrill, that we think it's over, and then, he comes back. And we want a more conclusive ending than what you've given us. Because, you pushed him out to sea. Well, what does that mean? They didn't like it in America. See, they don't like the ambiguous endings in America. Certainly in the 80s, they don't like it. Australia, we love it. We're about the ambiguous ending. Anyway, George Miller, that guy? He's a doctor of medicine, George Miller, if you didn't know. He's the guy who does the Mad Max movies. Yes, we know who George Miller is now, don't we? Yeah, okay. Now, so Phillip Noyce went and did this other ending, which was, Crazy Billy Zane coming back. So they did that. And then George Miller, he came up with another idea of, we'll do a whole sequence of Sam Neill. So what happens is Crazy Billy Zane gets on Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman's boat, and then Sam Neill, he rows out to the boat that Billy Zane came on to work out what the hell's going on, and then he gets stuck on the boat, right? And he can't get back to Crazy Billy Zane because he works out when he goes to Crazy Billy Zane's boat that, oh my God, Billy Zane's a murderer, and fuck, he's probably going to kill my wife who's on the other boat, so I've got to row back really quickly, right? So it's all very panicky. But then George Miller came up with this great idea that a shark, right, is going to hold like Sam Neill at bay. There's going to be a shark circling him on that boat, while on the other boat, cut to Crazy Billy Zane. Very tense. Anyway, imagine that, Sam Neill yelling out to Nicole Kidman, you think you got problems with Crazy Billy Zane? Well, I've got a fucking shark who wants to have me for lunch. Yeah, I know. Crazy. Anyway, unfortunately, that sequence didn't make the film. You get a sense that there's something lurking, watching Sam Neill. But, it was cut. Phillip Noyce refused to have it in. Well, he actually does say that George Miller also agreed to cut it. But that's a bit disappointing, I think. I want to see that. Anyway, the problems of doing a test screening for an Australian film in America. So think about that. You've made this film, an Australian film, and then you're going to go and play a bunch of Americans the film and ask them to judge the film and base the changes. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I know that some people are saying that's a good thing. That the problems with Australian films is they're too Australian-based. And, if you want to make it an Australian international film, it's got to work internationally, so you should be asking international people to do the test screening. Think about that. Or really, do Australians get an Australian film, and they should be the ones doing the ending. Okay, why do a test screening? So, test screenings, like I said, are given, audiences are given a series of questions about the film, its style, and where they would recommend it to a friend. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for this film, in the screening, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a test screening survey, and you can do it. We will pretend that were test screening this film. I'll be very interested to know what you make of it. Now, it offers an opportunity to correct problems missed by the production team. So, for instance, Cape Fear. Sorry, not Cape Fear. That's the Martin Scorsese film with crazy Bob De Niro. Dead Calm. Still films about boats. Dead Calm. Audiences said we didn't like the ending. So they went and reshot the ending. Shot the whole, another new ending. This is fine for big budget films, but not so fine for smaller films. Anyway, it anticipates and interprets the audience and picks up any problems because, America are obsessed with box office figures. All right, now types of test screenings, because you've asked. Now, if you get a professional organisation, it's going to cost you about $20,000. Now, many producers handle the test screening themselves. However, if a producer is handling the test screenings, the results can be very biased in the questions that they're asking and the way that the film is set up for the audience. A professional organisation, it's all independent. And often, if the producer is doing the test screening themselves, they might invite a lot of their family and friends to come. And you know how that's going to go down. What are the pros and cons of both models? So they get the independent professional organisation coming in, or doing it yourself. Professionally done, the data is not owned by the producer, but the production company, right? So Warner Brothers, what happened is Warner Brothers bought the film off Miller, and they agreed to distribute based on the audience screening, or the independently done by the producer test screening. What do you think about that? Now, skeptics insist that screen testing dilutes challenging ideas. So if you've got a really complicated and complex film, a test screening audience, because the thing about a test screening audience is, like, when you go to watch a film, you're thinking kind of positively. I want a good night out. I want to watch a good film. I want to enjoy this film. But a test screening is kind of like, ooh, what mistakes will I find in this film? So think about that. Steven Spielberg famously refuses to do test screenings. Absolutely refuses to do test screenings. And good on him. But, we're not all Steven Spielberg. Phillip Noyce now, he's a fan of the test screening. I quote, "One reason for Hollywood success may be the routine testing that Australian films have lacked. You've made a film for people to see." So basically, play it to people to see what they say. Should test screenings be more mandatory in Australia? So think about that. They've done a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, a lot of directors just refuse to do them. Should that be, Screen Australia saying, we will give you some cash for the film based on the fact that you will do a test screening and actually consider it. Film festivals, if you go to film festivals in Melbourne International Film Festival, they're commonly becoming a ground for test screenings. So are you aware of that? If you see a new film, that there will be people involved with the film often who are commenting, not on the film, but on you, on how many times you laugh. How do you laugh? Do you laugh a lot or not a lot? How do you feel when you go out? And if you're leaving a screening and you're given an audience awards card that they're asking you to fill out to vote for a film, all that data straight back to the producers. Right? It's all being used. And did you know that film festivals are commonly become a ground for test screenings, and that films are often changed based on how a film screens at a festival, which is crazy. Because festival crowds, if you go to a film festival crowds, they're all happy. They're all pissed most of the time. I'm just saying. I went to a Grateful Dead film at MIFF. Film was meant to go for 4 hours, but something happened to the film halfway through, so they had to stop it for an hour. So I was sitting in the cinema for over 5 hours, and the audience couldn't care less. Exactly. It's crazy. Don't trust a festival audience. I'm just saying that. Distributors, if you're listening, don't trust a festival audience. They're drunk and too happy. They're just happy. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that festival crowds are all happy. Maybe we should just make the cinema like a festival. Okay, final thought. What makes Dead Calm Australian? So think about that. I mean, we talked about why it's American, the certain characters in it, the structure of it, the ending of it, Crazy Billy Zane. But it is very Australian. And think about that. Think about, stoic Sam Neill, the New Zealander who we happily embrace as a true Australian legend of the screen. Thank you for your service to the Australian film industry, Sam Neill. The use of the coast in Queensland, the Great Barrier Reef, all of these things make it very Australian. The sounds of Australia. What sounds do we hear? What sounds don't we hear? The fact that we're on a boat for most of the film. We're not getting the usual kookaburras in the gum tree kind of sounds, but there are very much sounds used. How does the film use locations? What does it say about those locations? Again, the bad tourist destinations gone bad. What does the film say about the international Australia? How does this film work as an international Australian film? Test screenings. Do you like the idea of them? Should all Australian films be test screened? What are the problems of a film being test screened? Now, the problem of a film being test screened, say in Australia, is say you've got a very limited budget, right? And then you do a test screening and all your money's gone. You have no money. You're spent, right? And then the test screening comes back saying, oh, yeah, the ending's a bit shit. Could you put another ending for us? Could you do that? Is that cool? Cool, yeah. The other ending, that's going to cost a couple of $100,000. Don't have the money. So what use is that to us? Or, when you've got a really kind of complicated movie, what happens when a test screening, because what a test screening is just a couple of people. Like, it will be like 100 people at most giving their views, which is why Steven Spielberg hates them. Finally, what was the intention of the film? Does it succeed? Did well at the box office. Did well at launching careers. Nicole Kidman, Billy Zane. Do you know Tom Cruise watched this? This is what Tom Cruise says. He watched this film. He fell in love with Nicole Kidman, and a year later, they were making. Was it Days of Thunder? I think that's what the film was called. The car racing film, where things really got hot and steamy between them. Apparently, he watched this film. He fell in love with Nicole Kidman, and he wanted to work with her, and he did in Days of Thunder. Anyway, a true love story. Didn't end so well, but things were good for a while, I suppose. All right, what was the intention of the film? More than just Tom Cruise falling in love with Nicole Kidman. And does it succeed in its intention? Okay. I think it's a really interesting film. It obviously is done in a very old-style Hollywood suspense kind of way. Phillip Noyce said he was very influenced by Hitchcock in the making of it. Not so much, the film like Psycho, but more a film like Notorious, a film Hitchcock made well before Psycho, where it was really about implying a certain suspense and tension rather than just kind of showing it on the screen. It's not a gratuitous film. It's not an exploitation film, even though Nicole Kidman spends a lot of time wearing her undies and a white shirt in the film. The film seems very interested in keeping Nicole underclothed more than overclothed. I'm just saying that to you now, but it's not exploitation in all seriousness. But I think it's interesting in the way that it's kind of playing around with genre and it's playing around with suspense and it's also playing around with the Hollywood form, and as Australian audiences, as people studying Australian cinema, I'll be fascinated to know what you make of this in comparison to, say, other Australian films and things like that. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you're all well and happy, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.